Welcome. As you arrive, I invite you to take a minute to get settled. And so before meditating, that just means to find the most comfortable position to be in today, whether you're sitting on a cushion or whether you're sitting in a chair, or if you have a physical challenge and you need to do this meditation lying down, allowing that too to be fine. And I always ask people as you arrive to go into the chat box and just announce where you're here from. It's been really moving to see how we can connect with people from all over the world in this way during this time. So take a minute to get settled. And also please turn off your cell phone if it's on. Just giving yourself permission to move into a space and time that is just for you, for stillness, for conscious community. And for those who are new to me, I'm Eden. The format will be that we'll begin with a centering and then a guided meditation, meditating together from many different places. And then we'll open it up to a question and answer session, a Dharma conversation, really a conversation about how the teachings of presence, of compassion, apply to us in this time and how we can use this time to cultivate a long-term practice, to cultivate long-term sustainable change within and out. So again, I'm just going to take a peek and see where people are here from today. And I see Zurich and Santa Barbara, Oakland, Missouri, Philadelphia, New Jersey, San Francisco. And I see some familiar names. Welcome. And as we begin today, just take a moment to tune into your body. Please take in 3 deep, full body breaths. Be aware of your body's relationship with gravity and just invite yourself to begin to settle. When I say to settle, it's an invitation into deep listening. It's really an experience with our whole body of tuning in to our receptivity, tuning into stillness. So you can allow your eyes to either rest closed or open in a soft gaze. You can rest your hands in your lap and just allow yourself to invite relaxation anywhere in your body where you might be holding tension. If you're sitting, you can imagine an invisible string coming out from the top center of your head, ever so gently lifting you up towards the ceiling, just inviting this posture that is both upright and completely relaxed at the same time. It's really the posture of paying attention more subtly, more wakefully, the posture of deep listening within and out. And so as your breath returns to its natural rhythm, Notice what that rhythm is today, and just begin to feel your breath moving through your body. Feeling the air as it enters your body, fills your body, and leaves your body. Anchoring or rooting yourself in the rise and fall of breath. The continuous cycle of life, reminding us that every ending, every out-breath is a beginning. That every beginning, every in-breath is an ending. That as human beings, we're in this continual flow and cycle. Creating and letting go. Doing and resting. Being born and dying. So as we anchor today with our breath and the sense of flow, you might rest your attention towards the base of your spine, where as you breathe, you can feel a very slight, very subtle, very gentle rocking. Just a subtle motion that helps you to stay connected with the flow of breath moving through your body. And as this anchor wakes us up to the present moment, we can be aware of whatever is moving through us, moment by moment, perhaps noticing the sensations that are moving through your body. Meeting whatever moves through you, whether it's expansion or contraction, with welcome and curiosity. You might notice emotions, whatever energy in motion is moving through you today. And what a generous practice that whether what's moving through us is easy, inspiration, joy, lightheartedness, or whether what's moving through us is heavy, raw, hot, tender. We can meet whatever is here with welcome. With a kind of compassionate neutrality that I think of as steadfast love. It's the love that we access through stillness. No judgment in this field of stillness. No assessing going on. It's perfectly fine if you notice your mind pulling you off, away from the moment, into thought. Just see if you can allow your thoughts to be like clouds passing through the sky. We can allow ourselves to rest here in stillness. And just notice the clouds as they pass. Nothing we need to do or fix or solve in meditation. Just being present with the inner and outer landscape. No separation. See if you can allow yourself to surrender just a little more to still, spacious presence. In a world that is so focused on doing, producing, attaining, on judging, comparing, trying to improve ourselves and one another. Just notice what it's like to rest in the receptive, open, spacious quietude that is deeper as we meditate. We're in a state of deep listening. It actually requires little effort, more relaxation or rest. And as meditation is a practice of cultivation, this deep listening becomes over time a way of being in our everyday, ordinary life. Just notice what's here for you in the mirror of stillness today. Welcoming what is. As we meditate, I want to emphasize today the spirit of repetition, the spirit of cultivation, in which we hold meditation practice. It's not a practice that we do just for short-term gain or quick fix, though it certainly gives us, I should say can give us, an immediate experience of settling, of grounding, of remembering the choice to dwell in a much more spacious and kind quality of awareness than just the small world of the conditioned mind and limiting beliefs. The energetic system is impressed through repetition. That's the wisdom of practice, that it's in showing up again and again and again. That this deeper knowing, the absolute remembrance of interconnection, of a boundless awareness beyond our sense of small self, becomes known to us. becomes a home we can return to anytime. So in a moment when a lot has the potential to change in our world for the better, meaning there's a lot of need for a change on behalf of the greater good, this notion of cultivating presence, cultivating compassion, which really means committing to uncovering the compassion that's already who you are. You don't have to look outside of yourself for it. Cultivating, again, uncovering through the spirit of repetition, the resilience, the fierce strength of spirit that we all have access to when we go beyond our conditioned mind. So just allow your breath now to begin to deepen. And I'll emphasize again the beauty of learning to show up for practice, even if it's just a short practice. On those days that it's easy for us to show up, on those days when I want to, and I believe I have time, and on those days when we don't want to, on those days when ego has other agendas. It's in learning to show up no matter what, that we're showing up for ourselves, finding this more steadfast quality of compassion. Compassion is a two-way road, so as we cultivate it within for ourselves, we're cultivating it for the entire world. There's no separation. And in my book on relational mindfulness, I talk about cultivating a practice as cultivating a long-term partnership with a beloved, you know, really learning to show up on those days when I want to, when it's easy, when it's expansive, and I love this, and on those days when there's challenge and it's difficult, because it's in the mirror of our meditation, in the mirror of stillness, that everything that we need to see, everything that needs to be revealed to us, that can get in the way of remembering who we really are, arises. And it arises so we can see it clearly and let go and be free of it. What a good deal. So right now I'd like for everyone to just gently rest a hand at the center of your heart, allowing your eyes to still rest. And as you breathe deeply, just notice if there's any part of you, any aspect of your being who could particularly use kindness today. And in whatever way feels authentic for you, please take a minute to offer your own self-compassion, reassurance. Knowing that sometimes it can be as simple as, I love you, keep going. I love you, keep going. Okay, so remaining in that resting place of deep listening as we move into questions, and acknowledging that you can write questions in the chat box. They can be personal to you. They can be questions on behalf of the collective. To be clear, they're all offerings on behalf of the collective because we learn so much through one another's questions. And I think I'll make a few announcements first and then have Sarah read today's questions. And first I'll just announce that next weekend there are a couple of offerings remotely that could be invitations to go deeper. And so the first is on Saturday, just 3.5 hour at-home retreat about co-creating a regenerative future. So giving us a space to practice and explore together some of the larger opportunity and some of our hopes for embodying change as a collective through what's happening right now. And this is a topic I'm always on fire about, so I really encourage you to join. I think registration will be up today, and no one turned away due to lack of funds. And also the next day is a Dharma teaching, a Dharma talk and meditation, just about an 1.5 hour session that's on the topic of the joy and responsibility of we consciousness. So offering some of the teachings from my book on relational mindfulness. This is the book. And also speaking to some of the larger collective invitation in this time. Okay. So would anyone like to start us off with a question today, an inquiry?
There are 2 questions, Eden.
Great.
I'll read the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I find myself worrying about all of the time I'm losing to do things that are important to me, like dating and meeting my partner. Can you speak to ways to cope with this angst?
Yes. Thank you for that question. And the first thing I would say is we can only be where we are at any time. So now life has placed you where you are, and there are other places you can't be. One day, perhaps one day when you are with your beloved in partnership, you will still only able to be where you are. And if you're busy now entertaining stories in the mind that say, but I should be there instead, and I should be doing that instead, and there's something wrong. If you're building that muscle now in this moment of life, that muscle will be nice and strong when one day you're in partnership, and it will be taking you out of the moment. So my point is, people can apply this to your own specific experience of what stories you get distracted by right now. The invitation to live a joyful and wildly, vibrantly alive life is to not be in conversation with those stories, to learn how to let them arise, just as we do in meditation. No judgment, but noticing and bringing ourselves back to this moment and what's here and now. That said, because I also teach about relational mindfulness, and I would encourage anyone who is seeking, by the way, relational mindfulness is a set of principles and practices that we can bring to all of our relations, at work, romantically, with family, with ourselves, with the planet. But for anyone interested in romantic relationship, read the book. Use this time to deepen your own relationship with your own self and your own openness for real intimacy. Every relationship we will ever have in life is an extension of our relationship with ourself and the quality of that relationship. So use this time as a training, and then trust life. People often think, I need to be out there actively dating, going on as many dates as I can to find the right person. I need to be setting a whole period of time for this project called meeting the right person. I don't know. That seems to me to mirror a collective belief that we all have that emphasizes a more masculine approach to everything in life. I've got to go after it. I've got to do it. I've got to make it happen. It's up to me. My beloved, my husband, there's no way I made that happen. I wasn't even out dating. We were guided to each other in the most mysterious, magical way I could think of. And so I invite people to consider, if you cultivate presence and if you learn to trust life, if you're here for partnership, you will be guided. It might involve going actively out on dates, but if you're not allowed to do that right now, let yourself question the notion that it's not going to happen if you're not actively making it happen. So that's my encouragement for you. Sarah, what's the second question?
There are a lot of questions today, so there are 5 more that have come in, just so you have a sense of amount. I've chosen for safety to cancel medical procedures that I was hopeful about this month. I was supposed to have one yesterday, and I'm feeling grief about the loss of potential healing. What can I do to come to terms with this?
Yeah. Again, so many people who are feeling disappointments right now. So many of us have canceled so many of our plans. So really just holding a moment in our hearts for the collective disappointments. Yeah, the letting go that life has asked us to do right now. And the next thing I would say is a little similar to what I was just giving voice to. When you do these procedures, any medical procedures, it's helpful to know how to nourish your own self-healing process. Meditation, presence, self-compassion, being here as opposed to up in the stories in our head is so incredibly useful to all physical healing. I have gone through major physical healing over many years in my life. And the number one thing that's made the difference for me has been dropping limiting stories and also living a life of deep listening, where I'm attuned and can receive all kinds of information that is vitally important for my physical healing. So I would say, don't be Pollyanna about it, where you're like, oh, well, let's look at the silver lining. This is still good. I get to cultivate my healing. Honor the one who's disappointed, but also use this time to cultivate more of a deep listening relationship with yourself so that your healing, when it's time for those procedures, can be even more smooth, even more attuned. That's what I would offer. And for all of us, again, there might be a disappointed one inside to be with. So don't push that part of you away. Don't pretend it's not there and spiritual bypass it, but don't dwell on it either. You are alive now. This is a perfect moment in your life to wake up more fully. Okay. Thank you. Sarah, who's next?
How does a compulsive doer handle this practice?
That's great. How does a compulsive doer handle this practice? Yeah. So I imagine there are a lot of compulsive doers out there because our dominant paradigm is one of compulsive doing. There's a tremendous imbalance just in the dominant paradigm. An emphasis on doing and producing and getting somewhere and busying ourselves, a glamorization of busyness. We all know that. And a real lack of attention going to the need for rest, for stillness, for integration, for the internal world. I would encourage you to think of it this way. You've gotten to know yourself really well, I'm sure, in the context of being busy, in the context of doing and creating. And you probably have not gotten to know yourself as well at all in the context of stillness, of being, of rest, the spacious field of awareness that I've named. Your heart is longing for it, and this is universal. The collective heart is longing for it because it's actually who we really are. It's the deepest part of us. But the one who likes to be busy resists it, doesn't so much enjoy it. So I would consider a couple of things. Number one, sure, give the part of you who needs to stay busy good things to do during the day. And then say, hey, during this time when I want to meditate, this is to honor other aspects of my being, okay? And see if you can just make a little agreement that you're going to have a willingness to drop in and just be curious about what is this field of stillness. It's a practice, spirit of repetition, so you'll notice over time that it gets easier and easier. Now, this is something for the larger group, and it's that even though we, in our hearts, long for and love spaciousness, interconnection, intimacy, which is what we're practicing in meditation. The ego hates it. The ego's terrified of empty space. And so a lot of us are busy doing in our lives without us knowing it, just to fill empty space, just to keep maintaining this sense that we're somehow in control of life. What would happen if you let that go and just surrendered? Just a question for you, something to hold. What might happen? What if empty space were not the lack of something? What might it be the presence of? So can you sit with that question? If emptiness were not the lack of something, what might it be the presence of? And just to notice, okay? Let's all take a breath and just pause for a moment. Really letting yourself receive and integrate each teaching and how it connects to you personally. And Sarah, what's the next?
I really miss physical touch, hugging loved ones and friends. It's so foreign to me to be told not to do this. Is there a way to work with meditation to process this feeling?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so meditation, there's formal practice, sitting in the way that we just did, but of course it's a training for meditating all day long and in every aspect of our lives, for waking up through every aspect of our life. And so the first encouragement is just to notice. The more that you learn to rest in presence, the more that you learn to rest in your own receptivity. For me, it's an experience of absolute interconnection. And it's an experience of feeling held. It's an experience of feeling held by compassion, this compassion that welcomes every single part of my being, from the most joyful and easy aspects to the most gnarly and messy and all of it, okay? And so that's one encouragement, is just to notice how the more you rest in that place, and it can take time, you really do feel a sense of being physically held. And the other thing is to treat yourself with as much generosity through physical touch as you can right now. That can come in so many ways. That can come through bringing more presence and sensitivity and sensuality to how you prepare your meals and how you enjoy your food. It can come to how the quality of attention with which you sip your morning tea. It can mean a ritual every day of massaging your body with oil for a nice long time before or after you bathe. It's about cultivating the kind of relationship with yourself that also includes loving touch, okay? Sometimes through deep listening, you can just practice resting your hand on different parts of your body with absolute receptivity, just experiencing the loving kindness of your own touch. So there's many ways you can work with this, but I do encourage you to honor that a part of you isn't getting a certain need met, and to welcome that in now. Yeah, to welcome that in. Sarah.
How do I process anger and insomnia with practice?
Wow, that's a great one. Well, first I want to say that anyone working with insomnia, I had a few years where insomnia was big for me, and I am so protective around my rituals for sleep because of it. So just a voice of compassion first, that anyone working with insomnia knows it can really mess with you. It can make it unbearably difficult to move through the day. We say in practice that as we're transforming our relationship with ourselves and therefore with life, it's really wise to pay attention to, and this is an acronym, I believe, from AA, to pay attention to not letting yourself get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. So the acronym is HALT, because in any of those states, we're much more susceptible to the conditioned mind. We're much more susceptible to really difficult emotions. We're much more susceptible to being pulled off by some bullshit story that tends to play out in our mind. We're much more susceptible to delusion. So if you're working with insomnia, first you want to be really, really kind and caring with yourself and gentle, like give yourself permission to be messy that next day. Give yourself permission to be emotional if that's what it stirs in you, but also to really begin to learn, what do you need to address insomnia? And you're welcome to send me an email personally if you want some tips around this. But it's really important for each and every one of us to find right relationship with sleep. Yeah. And this is for everyone, regardless of whether you're working with insomnia. Anger is a completely natural emotion. And right now, if we're attuned, if we're listening to what's going on in our world, if we're paying attention, there's a whole lot to be angry about. We don't stop at getting angry. Anger is one of the first emotions that says, hey, I care. I care about this world. I care when someone hurts me. I care that others are not being taken care of. And so it's an important emotion to not just judge the way conditioned society tends to judge it, as there tend to be bad emotions and good emotions, and that's completely made up. It's completely unhelpful. When we acknowledge anger as a messenger, then we can really learn how to not be caught in the anger, and that's when we either act out of it and cause harm internally, or repress it and cause harm internally, but to actually work with that energy, to honor the one who's angry, like someone you respect who comes to you who's really angry. You're going to stay present with them. You're going to hang out and listen. You're going to not feed the fire, but you're also not going to diminish. Oh, lighten up, because I only have capacity to be with people who are light, because I haven't yet dealt with my own shadows, which are all fabulous invitations, okay, to wake up to wholeness. So dropping the notion that anything's wrong with anger, learning how to be with the angry one, and honoring what those feelings are, what they're connecting you to. What's more damaging than anger is numbness, numbing out, turning away from emotions, which are vital messengers. So we can certainly say more about that, and maybe you can let us know in the chat if there's more you want to ask around that. Anger is something I could give a week-long or even month-long teaching on. It's such an important part of practice, and it's been such a good teacher for me. But that's what I want to say right now, just to honor other people's questions as well. Okay. Thank you. Sarah, how many more do we have right now?
This is actually the last one right now.
Okay.
How might I prepare for the inevitable devastation that's still to come over the next couple or few weeks? How can I reel myself during these moments of extreme anxiety? It's very scary.
Yeah. And I'll just say, because this is the last question for right now, if there are others who have questions, you're welcome to take a minute to write those down as well. We have space. This is a really important question. And first of all, I hear you talking about how to be with anxiety and how to be with yourself in those moments when it gets really strongly triggered. And we all know it can start to overtake the body, and we need ways to just calm our nervous systems and help ourselves to self-regulate. And I also want to point out that there's a bit of a story. There's that part of our mind that is looking out for perceived threat, for perceived doom and gloom, for future threat. As much as you possibly can, keep it to this moment. Keep it to this moment. sure, you could say there's plenty of evidence for what is yet to come. And just to keep it real, as human beings, we have a tremendous amount of challenge that we will continue to have to face through this, through climate change. When I say challenge, I see opportunity. Opportunity for us as a collective that has an incredible access to natural intelligence to work together to change old ways that haven't worked. But that said, given, yes, there are things we will have to navigate, and there are things we're going to navigate soon just through this crisis that will have a long-term effect. Be careful of the part of your mind that with certainty says that thing is coming and I need to be afraid of it. Because in that moment, when it calls that up, it makes it happen right now. There you are in this moment, conjuring up that possible future right now, that horrible thing that you won't be able to face right now, that pending doom right now. And that's not helpful. That's not what we're going for in practice. Again, coming back to this moment right now as you're listening, and for everyone to pause. It all happens in the pause. Close your eyes for a moment and just take in a couple of conscious, full body breaths, really feeling the air as it moves through your body. Observing the state of your mind. No agenda other than curiosity, just noticing the pace and quality of your mind. A good question to ask can be, through what lens am I perceiving the world right now? So if you're perceiving through a distorted lens or a habitual lens, you can begin to step back a bit, okay? And then to just bring awareness to your emotional body, really noticing what feelings are here, welcoming whatever feelings are here. And you can do that by just letting yourself notice, where in my body do I feel this? And what is it like to just breathe and be with this? And tuning into your body more, just noticing, just observing. So just bringing compassionate awareness and curiosity to what's right here, right now. Sometimes as we're listening in, let's say particularly to our emotional body, we'll notice a need not being met. So the anxious one probably has a need to feel safe, probably has a need to feel that they're not alone, or that they have what it takes to meet life, okay? And so as we go further in practice, we learn how to really embrace whatever part of us is arising, whatever aspect of our being is arising, the same way we would embrace a dear friend or a child. More honestly, it is typically more like a child. Parts of us who have not been met with what they need in the past, the compassion, the mentoring, the guidance, the support. And it's set us up to live life in a way that can trigger a lot of anxiety, okay? And I'll also just offer that, you know, some of you listening have been practicing a long time, and some of you are newer to practice. And so if you've been practicing a long time, you know how much your practice has prepared you for what's going on now. And you probably feel incredible gratitude because it has fortified you and cultivated a particular level of resilience and calm in the face of the storm. It's phenomenal. And some of you are newer to practice. And so to acknowledge it can be, it's like high level to learn to find this calm in the middle of such a triggering time. But I promise it's possible. I promise every time I've been placed in circumstances that felt unbearable, okay, that felt the most challenging, that's been a time of incredible spiritual growth. I used to work with anxiety quite a bit, and one memory I would state is, in practice we learn to pay attention really subtly to, okay, this thing, let's say, that I call anxiety. I've come to label anxiety. And when it comes up and I'm labeling anxiety, I'm assuming, oh no, it's anxiety. This is horrible. I need to get away from it. I hate this. What's wrong with me? Or whatever the story is. Before that label, it just began as a sensation in your body, a subtle sensation. And that triggered emotion, and that triggered thought. And that sequence then led to this experience that you label anxiety. See if you can just get down to noticing, when I'm in this thing I call anxiety, what is the most subtle sensation of it? Can I just be with it on the level of sensation? And I remember once when it hit me, in just being with the sensation of anxiety, I had this realization, oh my gosh, it's this whole sensation moving through my body. But if I wasn't labeling it anxiety, it would actually be like a whole body orgasm. That was my realization. That's how intense the sensation was. And my mind had just gotten used to labeling that anxiety and horrible and get away from it. So what is actually happening on the level of just sensation? And can that help you step back from the whole charade, the whole story, the whole narrative that you have going on with that, with what you're calling anxiety? So there's two more things I'm going to say, and one is just, anyone who feels the need for extra support during this time, my schedule is pretty full right now, and I am allowing openings still for people who feel the need to do one-on-one sessions. Just go to my website. If you're someone in need, get support, and support for deepening practice. And the other thing I'll mention is that my husband, Mark, is a flower essence therapist, and flowers are such phenomenal medicine during this kind of time because they can work very subtly and powerfully with the nervous system, with emotions. Part of what I teach is presence and partnership with nature. Presence as our foundation, and working in partnership with nature wherever we can, which also means asking for help from the natural world. And so we'll send out Mark's link on the follow-up, but I know that there's a set of essences that have been very useful for people during this time. I think there's a tab that has that announcement. So yeah, and the website is essencealchemy.com. So we have a few more minutes. Let's all just pause and we'll see if there's another question. But just take a minute to breathe and be. Sarah, are there any other questions?
There is one more question.
Okay, make this maybe the final question today.
It's hard to ask, but I was having an online appointment with my doctor, and I've been thinking about weaning off an SNRI for my anxiety and depression. Recommended not to. Any thoughts?
Can it be clarified what that is?
I think it's a prescription medication for anxiety and depression.
Okay, thank you. This is a very personal decision for you to make, but here's what I would say if you want my perspective. We live in a world where we have more ways than human beings have ever had in all of time to turn away from rather than turn towards our emotions, particularly difficult emotions. We have an out of control internal and collective now labeling system that labels every emotion, every feeling, every mental state, every experience there's just a real few over here that are considered good, acceptable. I think I can be with that. And there's a whole bunch, more than ever, that are labeled, nope, that's going to take me down. I don't have what it takes to be present with that. That's knocking me off my game. That depression is too much to be with. I don't personally buy any of it. And what I believe in and what my life experience is, and I've not had a casual experience as a human being, I've been through all of it, is in learning to turn towards rather than away. And sometimes this means having support externally as we learn to turn towards, okay? Having someone who can help us to do that. But learning to turn towards rather than away serves us both in that moment, and it serves us over the entire span of this human life to learn to meet whatever is arising, to learn to meet the places that feel the most difficult, the most painful, with love. Love is widely misunderstood in our culture, and sometimes it's thought of as kind of a always positive cheerleader, or the rainbow sunset romance vision, something we get from people outside of ourselves, or something we get when we deserve it. It's not. Love is a quality of presence that we have access to in every single moment of our lives, that sometimes feels like meeting the shittiest emotion we've ever felt with a gentle okayness, And it sometimes feels like meeting ourselves with more generosity and joy than we ever have. So love has a million colors, but we can't access love if we don't practice turning towards rather than away, okay? So that's just an encouragement I offer. The only other thing I'll say is that, you know, at the monastery that I trained, everyone, when they would apply to come, was asked to go off any kind of medication that they had been using for something like, let's say, depression and whatnot. And for people listening, this is something that can only happen when you have deep practice support and deep mentoring. But I personally witnessed people who had considered themselves manic depressed and bipolar and all kinds of things heal through meditation. So I want to say that with care, because there are also times when people need external support and need perhaps even pharmaceuticals. I am not the expert on everyone else's life. I can just share from my own experience, from what I've witnessed, and from all the human beings I've worked with over decades, that there's a loud story in our culture that has an a loud story that has an emphasis on we are not adequate to our experience. So we have to keep turning away from, filling ourselves up when we feel empty, distracting ourselves when there's discomfort or extreme emotion. It's bullshit. It's not true. And it takes us away from our deeper, I think, purpose of being here as human beings, which is love. So I hope that that question is sufficient during this time. And I also want to emphasize that anyone listening who is also on a particular drug for this kind of thing right now, no judgment. Please honor what your experience has been. Please honor what your choice has been. No judgment, okay? So I think that that is, I'm looking at some of the notes on the side. Really happy to see who's here and happy to be here with you today. And so we'll meet again every Tuesday and Thursday. For those of you who want to sign up for one of the offerings next weekend, Saturday or Sunday, you can do so on my website. I think registration will be up later today. And my 4-week course on deep time, slowing down as a revolutionary act, is also coming up soon. And so lastly, let's all pause and just appreciate this space, appreciate one another from afar. It's so meaningful to come together in this way. And anyone who feels anyone for whom it would bring you joy to offer a donation to my organization for my time, that would be welcome. I would be grateful. And I want to wish everyone just a very gentle and caring day today. Please pay attention to not turning on the news all the time. Please have conscious boundaries around that. Please keep yourself grounded in what is here and now. That's all for today. Bye-bye, everyone.